Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm so incredibly excited. Today, we have Jim McCarty. Jim McCarty was the original scribe for the Law of One material and has been a wonderful shepherd of all of the Law of One material, also contributing much with additional channelings, is an expert on a variety of different topics. And I was incredibly excited that he agreed to come on, and we're going to talk about the Law of One, the origins, and the philosophy behind it. And I'm just try to squeeze as much information as I can in the time we have. So welcome to the Reality Revolution, Jim. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here.
Well, thank you. For people that don't know, and I have several videos on my channel discussing it, and I might misexplain this. Jim can certainly correct me. The Law of One material is a material of channeled works, I believe, from 1981 to 1984. That was channeled through three people: Don Elkins, Jim McCarty, and Carla Rueckert. Carla Rueckert was the channel, and there's some history behind it, and we can certainly talk about that. But once they started to channel this information, it was so mind-blowing, and the origins of it were so interesting that when you read this material, it really unlocks the secrets of the universe and the soul and the way that the universe works. And the best thing I can tell you to do is to go to lawofone.info to get as much information. All of the transcripts of the channelings are available there. But it's like I'm talking to somebody in a famous movie or something. I'm super nervous and excited to talk to somebody who was actually there, that was a part of this incredible channeling that has changed so many people's lives and really altered the way we look at the universe. So thank you so much, Jim. There's some interviews that you have online, and people may have already know about you, but tell us a little bit more of how you got into channeling and met Carla and Don, and how this process kind of started.
Well, I don't know where exactly to start because every step along the way is an important step on anybody's path. So right before I met Don and Carla, I was part of what was called the Back to the Land movement of the 70s, where college-educated hippies were going back to the land to try to live what Henry David Thoreau said, the simple life.
Right.
Simplify. So I was back there. I built a log cabin in the woods of central Kentucky, and I didn't have any power or water. I was off the grid, but I had a little battery-powered radio.
Mm-hmm.
And one night in May of 1979, I was listening to a radio station in Lexington, Kentucky, WKQQ. And they were interviewing Don Elkins and Carla Rueckert on the topic of UFOs. And they were talking not about what the ships look like or the occupants, but their philosophy. And they said that these entities have been channeling through Carla for a number of years, and through Don as well from the early 60s, said we are all part of the one infinite creator. And the Creator made us all as a way of getting to know itself better. That this process of evolution that we are in goes through various stages, and each stage is moving us closer and closer to the Creator. And that now we were getting close to going into the fourth density of love and understanding. And so when I heard all of that, that just made sense to me. Right. And I was trying to figure out how to meet Don and Carla, because I was about 70 or 80 miles away from Louisville, where they were located. Mm-hmm. But I was lucky. About 4 or 5 months later, we all had co-ops. We ordered food we couldn't grow ourselves. And I found that there's people from the other side of the same county I lived in who remember my co-op. And I was talking to them about this interview I heard with Don and Carla. And they said, well, we're members of their meditation group. We can introduce you. So I said, great. So for the next year, I drove up to Louisville every Sunday night for their meditations and got to be good friends with them, and even helped them move from the apartment they lived in downtown, close to downtown Louisville, to a nice one-story house out on the edge of Louisville. Mm-hmm. It was a few acres of land. And so I helped them move, and they invited me to join them. So I joined them in December of 1980, and we got along, just great. And 3 weeks later, the raw contact began.
Wow. And it very much sounds like it was meant to be, the timing of it and everything, doesn't it?
It does.
So I want to go to that. And my first question is, have you had people from Hollywood contact you because the information is interesting, but the story of it coming about is a story in itself beyond just the information. And so I've always, stepping back from what Ra is saying, wanted to know behind the scenes, once you started accessing this material, how it affected you. I mean, you were the one transcribing it, and Don is starting to get these questions. And at the whole time, the thing that adds to the credibility of it is that Carla didn't even know. You guys kept it purposely quiet. You did not tell her what was going on for scientific purposes, which is amazing. And so for like 3 weeks or something, she didn't know what was being said. So people always question channeling. People always question from their own perspective, oh, they're not really saying anything, or it's just a part of themselves or an aspect of themselves. We see people channeling on TV. They're doing it with their eyes open, without any preparation. So we all, I guess, have to kind of evaluate any channeling individually with our own, how does it feel to our own hearts and what we think. But the way that you guys did it, the scientific manner of it was so credible. What was going through your mind when you started getting this information, and how mind-blowing it was?
Well, it was truly mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Don had been in the field of channeling for 19 years previous to this.
Okay.
And he had been building up and getting better and better information as time went on. And so for him, this was the culmination. He recognized this as about as good as it gets.
Right.
And for me, this was really my first experience with channeling. So I was involved in something that it was all new. And it was so incredible as I was there in the sessions and then transcribing it later, that it just made sense. Well, I think it's the same thing for so many people who read it. They say it's like a letter from home, that it's not something that's totally new.
It feels like something I already knew. Yeah.
That it's in you. It's in its all.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of people here that have come to Earth to be of service, and this is a letter from home. So that's basically what we felt, that we were being very, very privileged, that this was such an honor.
Yeah.
Hardly believe, because we were trying to be serious seekers and trying to be careful and assiduous and dedicated and sincere, but everybody falls short.
Of course.
And we felt very human too, and we felt so lucky to be there. So that was basically it. Carla was not there. She was not in her body while this was going on.
Right.
She was with those of Ra, supposedly at what's called the fifth density, the density of light. And she was not aware of what was going on there either. For Carla, the Ra contact was like going to sleep and then waking up pretty tired and worn out.
It took her energy. So
right. we had to discover ways of revitalizing her and giving her more energy as time went on. This contact was a product of our free will. Ross said that they couldn't tell us something straight out. They just had to wend our way through various mysteries, because it was a free will action that we were involved in.
Right.
And so when Carla finally said to Don, you just got to ask Ra if I can read this. It's been 21 sessions now. You guys keep talking to me about mind, body, spirit complex, and when I distorted towards hunger or sleep, come on. So Don finally did ask in session 21 if it would be okay for Carla to read the material. And Ra said, yes, it's no problem at all, because we have her with us. She is not there to distort it in any way whatsoever. Okay. So it's fine for her to read it. And so
did she ever try to unlock what happened in between those times? Did she ever go into hypnosis or try to get a glimpse of that fifth density that she went to while she was channeling? Did she ever see it maybe in dreams, or have a taste of it, or have a way of describing it to you?
Somewhere along about halfway through the sessions, she mentioned to Don that there was something like a bleed through that was happening, that she was barely aware of a communication taking place.
Right.
And she wondered, what exactly that was. So Don asked Ra, and Ra said, well, just like your baby in a crib, when it hears the words of the adults around it, it is aware there's words being spoken, but it doesn't speak that language yet. So this is something that it probably will continue.
Right.
But it never got any more than that. She never was aware of the communication there, just aware that something was going on.
So I want to talk about the how you guys started each of these sessions. You would conduct the LBRP, to cleanse the room,
Right.
and there was something more happening when three of you were doing it. You're all kind of lending your light to, as a level of protection. As we later learn on, and later there was negative or entities serving of service to self that were trying to intrude and get their word, or stop it. Or am I correct in that description?
Right. Ross suggested that anytime anybody channels information,
Right.
anybody,
Anybody.
and it has a possibility of helping create changes in consciousness in a positive sense, the negative entities have the right to tempt you away from what you're doing and have their point of view presented.
Right.
So that's why a lot of channels start off positive, and then they don't know exactly how to keep that positive contact. Carla discovered in her conscious channeling that
Hmm.
not only do you have to tune yourself to be at the highest vibration possible, which almost every channel knows,
Right.
but you also have to challenge any contact every time you channel in the name of whatever it is it's a heart of your being,
Oh,
what you live for, what you would gladly die for. You have to challenge them in that name. She challenged in the name of Jesus the Christ because from the age of 2, Jesus was her Lord and Savior.
right.
So in that way, you have the ability to challenge such entities because you will be tempted. That's just part of it. That's a natural part of the evolutionary process. There are negative entities, and they deserve to be heard too, because all what we do here in this third density is a free will choice. We
Right.
have to use our own discrimination at all times with all material, including the raw contact and law of one.
Yeah.
We have to use our own discrimination. And so these negative entities have the right to be heard. That's basically it.
Right.
And people, and so channels need to know that they need to challenge any entity at every time to know whether or not they really want to hear from that entity, because
Right.
it's crowded, as Carla said, it's a crowded universe. There are all kinds of entities out there.
So these entities can come through saying that they were raw and not be raw. Could that have
Well,
happened during any of the sessions?
no, we took precautions
Okay.
to ensure that did not happen. Not only did we purify the room with the banishing ritual, but
Hmm.
also Ra gave us a ritual specifically to use for the raw contact called the Circle of One, walking the Circle of One. And it was Don and I walking around Carla as she was lying on the bed, ready to go into trance.
Okay.
And it began with, why are we here? Don would say that, and I would say, we seek the law of one. Then Don would say, why do we seek Ra? Ra is a humble messenger of the law of one. And then together we would say, both together, we purify this place in the law of one. Let no entity enter the circle who is not a member of the law of one. And then that basically was the way we purified the circle every time. If we
Hmm.
made any kind of mistake in that ritual, if one of us tripped, for example, physically, which happened once, or we said a word incorrectly, that provided an opening for a negative entity to come through. So we had immediately to repeat the walking of the circle.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that was how we protected Carla and the purity of the information, because that was just the way it was. We knew that those entities of negative nature would always be looking for a way to come in.
So it looked, you guys had to even align her body and the Bible at a certain angle. It
Right,
was that specific, which is
right,
fascinating to me.
yeah.
So before you had at least an inkling from the other entities you had channeled that this was possible. You were channeling some of the Confederation before
Right.
you channeled Ra. And did it just happened accidentally? In the first channeling, Ra is kind of exploring the different mediums to channel. Am I right? He goes through Dawn and then someone, or you?
No,
It was
I
someone
was out
else?
buying groceries at this time.
Right.
The way the raw contact began was Don and Carla were teaching one of the Sunday night meditation students how to channel.
Ah,
So he was there, and that was the time that Rod picked to come out. Carla
wow.
had had two, she had never been in trance before except for two occasions the previous November. A member of our meditation group's wife passed away, and she told him that she would contact him through Carla to let him know that she was okay. And there was certain information they had between them that she would give him through Carla to let him know that it was her.
Right.
And so those 2 sessions that Carla had were the first sessions in trance. So Ra said later that those were the preparatory sessions. Those were meant to be. And that was part of the whole puzzle that was being put together for the Ra contact to occur.
Right.
So that was how Carla got experience with the channeling through trance.
Fascinating. So, of course, it's a big world, and everybody wants to say they're channeling Ra. You go on YouTube and yeah, I channeled Ra, just sitting here at my desk, just started channeling. And I find that interesting. I'd like to ask you, what do you think when you hear that people are channeling Ra after everything that you went through, the specificity of it, that people are just casually just sitting there channeling Ra? What do you think is happening?
Well, I cannot say for sure.
Yeah.
I can say that it's probably not likely because there were preconditions for the Ra contact. First, there had to be at least 3 people in the circle. There had to be the question and answer type of format, because Ra only used that because they thought that was the way to ensure our free will, so that they didn't give these what sometimes been called cosmic sermonettes. Brad Steiger called them cosmic sermonettes.
Right.
Didn't do that because they felt that would be abridgment of our free will. Maybe that's not what we're looking for.
Right.
So there had to be question and answer, and it had to be the type of channeling where the instrument leaves its body. So if somebody can meet all those 3 priorities,
Right.
maybe they are channeling Ra, but I haven't heard anybody else doing that.
Right.
But I would say to anybody who's wondering, well, is that worthwhile information? Again, you have to use your own discrimination.
Your own.
Maybe they're Ra, maybe it's Ra, maybe it's not, but listen to it, take it in, see
Right.
what you think about it.
So the first realization when I'm reading The Law of One, and it's all fascinating, is the science fiction fan in me is so excited. Oh, wow, Venus had a bunch of people on it. So I want to talk about that from your perspective. You learned that Venus 3 billion years ago had what was it, 6 million or 12? How many people were? It was a pretty small number for that planet.
Well, the total was 38 million, but
38
only
million.
6.5 million graduated and became what we call Ra.
So my first question, I know that I'm sure that Don wanted to. Did you choose? You could have gone into more questions about Venus. Like, we would love to know about your history. Did you have space vehicles? Did you watch TV? Was there an internet? Didn't you kind of have a part of you that wanted to know more, just to share a little bit more about Venus? Did you choose not to do that because there's so many other questions? Did you choose not to, or do you wish you had?
We asked some questions about Ra and
Okay.
about Venus and how they progressed in their evolution there. And they said that they were a very, I guess you'd say, harmonious civilization, right, with very little tendency towards adverse relationships, any types of wars. So they progressed themselves through what they called sexual energy exchanges and relationships with each other, and high sexual magic,
Which
and discovering the tarot.
This was a planet of orgies that were going on. It was right. Of course, that may not be, but I'm thinking, wow, it's completely different than what we imagine. People are exchanging sexual energies on a.
Well, they also discovered that the monogamous relationship, the one-to-one relationship, was the most effective to progress in evolution, but that there were different ways of using the energy exchanges. There's mental exchanges, physical exchanges, sexual exchanges, and the sexual exchange was something that they used to, what they said, penetrate the veil of forgetting, and discovered more of the tarot, which describes, this is advanced information here though,
right,
describes the archetypical mind,
right,
how we evolve in our process of evolution.
Right.
The archetypical mind from the tarot is 22 cards.
Right.
And 7 are for the mind, 7 for the body, 7 for the spirit, and then there's the choice. So what they were just doing was describing the nature of evolution and how we can accelerate it. And they discovered that through these exchanges, this high sexual magic is what they called it.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw it as being very helpful as a means of evolving. And it gave them a perspective that continued to expand. And we now have what's called the Tarot on this planet and the
Right.
Archetype of Mind that can accelerate evolution. Now, as I said, though, that's in book 4, and that's the more advanced type of
Right.
information. And people who study that say that it is very helpful, but it also is the most difficult information to understand that came through.
It really is. It's the part where I'm going, I don't, some of it gets lost. Some of that I have to reread. And it's definitely the part where we're going up another level. When we start talking about the tarot and the matrix of the mind and all that stuff, it's still very fascinating. It feels credible to me. And it's wonderful that we have that information. It's also fascinating to think that we have the tarot because of them, that they originally had brought that information here. At least that was implied. Am I correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're not necessarily saying that you use the tarot to predict your future, but to understand your mind. Is that a better understand? Okay.
Right. They felt that predicting the future was not one of the reasons they came up with the Tarot. There were later entities after they left the Tarot with the Egyptians from Sumeria and Chaldea who were into astrology and predictions. And so they mixed the Tarot and astrology together. And as Ross said, there were uneven results from that.
Right.
So when we were questioning them about the various concepts on each of the Tarot cards, each of the images, some of them were astrological and were put there by the Egyptians because they got that information from the Sumerians and the Chaldeans. And so Ra would say, well, that is astrological. You should remove that, and we'll give you better information here in place of that.
Love it.
So that was the way that they did it. That they did not see divination as being particularly helpful. Although if you do take the Tarot cards and you mix in the major arcana with the rest of the minor arcana and the court arcana, that people can make credible predictions into the future, into what we call the future, by using them. But that's not what they devised it for.
Right. So what does your instinct tell you that they looked like? They don't really say, but we know they didn't have opposable thumbs, right?
Well, they didn't tell us that.
They didn't tell us. They just said that we had opposable thumbs.
Right.
Right. And Mars had opposable thumbs. Right.
They apparently walked among the Egyptians 11,000 years ago in answer to a call for the law of one information. And at that time, they attempted to appear as they did when they were on Venus. They said they were tall and slender, and their skin had a golden luster to it.
Okay.
But they were enough different from the Egyptians in their appearance and in what they had to say and how they said it, that the Egyptians began worshiping them as gods, which was not their intent at all. They were very discouraged that that was happening because the Egyptians were distorting their words, saying, and their meanings. They said that for every word or concept they shared, there were 30 different misperceptions of that concept. So they cut their visits short and left the Egyptians and looked for ways they felt it was their responsibility. These distortions that had been given to the law of one by the Egyptians, it was Ra's responsibility to try to correct those at a later time.
Almost like they had created karma in doing what they had done.
Right. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. With the best of intentions.
With the best of intentions. They
tried, but they discovered that the information they gave the Egyptians was reserved for the rich and powerful.
Right.
And they said that was not at all the way they intended it, because we're all one. We're all the same. Nobody's better than anybody else. So that was another reason why they had to leave and try to find a way to correct the distortions, as they call them, that had been given to the law of one. So that was one of the two reasons that they contacted our group, was to try to correct those distortions. And also because we're so close to entering the fourth density, we basically begun entering the fourth density of love and understanding. And that was the second and major reason for contacting us, give us information about that, if we asked about it. And we certainly did.
So I want to talk about moving to the fourth density. My friend Aaron Abke asked me to ask you, it says that there's a 75,000 year period in the third density, and then we moved to the fourth density, and it wasn't clear. He wanted to ask, is it a 500,000 year period in the fourth density? Is it a longer period once we're in that love and understanding density, or is it another 75 years? It didn't quite he wanted to know more clarification of that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's much longer in the fourth density.
Yeah.
It's 30 million years long.
30 million years. Okay.
And incarnations are 90,000 years long.
Wow.
And the reason it's so short here in the third density is that the catalyst, the things that help us to grow, Ra called catalyst, misperceptions with people, arguments, or any difficulties, jealousy, all of that is catalyst. We can use it to grow. It's
Right.
grist for the mill. And is so much more intense here, 100 times more intense here than anywhere else. But it results in the choice, our choice of being positive or negative to go forward in our evolution. And this choice is what is so important. And it is, as Ra said, is but the work of but a moment, the axis upon which the rest of the creation turns.
Oh,
so the rest of the creation is merely a refinement of the choice we make here.
it's
So
amazing.
the fourth density is 30 million years long. The fifth density is 50 million years long. The sixth density is 75 million years long.
Right.
And so all of the choice that we make here and all the things that bring us to that choice takes a great deal of effort. But because we have this condensed time here, we have this veil of forgetting where we don't remember
Right.
previous incarnations. We have to start over, it seems, and learn what we pre-incarnatively chose to learn here.
Right.
And this is something that, because we have that veil of forgetting, it happens much more quickly here. At an earlier point in the creation of this universe, there was no veil of forgetting. And this third density illusion took much longer because there was no veil. And the various entities, what we would call our sun body, Ra would call a logos, or a love, the creative principle that created the universe after the creator created it.
Right.
All these entities then have this way of giving entities in the third density a chance to grow and help the creator know itself. The creator knowing itself is the basic reason why all of the creation was made. The creator wanted to know itself by creating this vast, infinite creation with entities like us who had free will and who could use that free will to make choices. And every choice we make gives the creator more knowledge of itself.
Right.
Every choice we make has the potential for taking us closer to the creator. So at some point, there was no veil of forgetting, and the third density took a long time.
Right.
So the various logoi said, well, we would like to speed it up a bit if we could and help the creator to know itself more intensely, because these entities in the third density don't have that veil. They know they're the creator, so they don't have a whole lot of reason to change their position or their status. We're the creator. Everybody's a creator. Why change that? So the veil then between the conscious and the unconscious mind kept us from knowing all of that, all of the truth, that this is a creation of light made out of love. It is a creation of unity, and we're all part of the creator. So we have to work real hard here to get to that point where we think that might be true. And we have the faith that is true and the will to pursue that ability. But it's because of that veil of forgetting that was discovered later on in the evolutionary process that made the evolution that much more effective.
Right.
See, we don't live in a creation where everything's already known and all I have to do is find out what's already known. It's the creation of continuous evolving of knowing. There is a great deal of knowledge to know. And we do think we know quite a bit, but it's just a little bit.
It's just a little
There's
bit.
a whole lot more. You know, the mystics of all ages have discovered we live in a creation of unity. The creator is within each one of us, waiting to be discovered, showing little parts of itself now and then to help us out. So that's why it took a little longer earlier and why it doesn't take so long now. But after this third density and we've made the graduation, then we refine this choice. Those refinements take a long time. It's a very subtle process. So
that helps me to understand much more. So when I read about Ra moving to fourth density, where only 6 million out of 36 million, or whatever, the 32 million, I think you said, that means on our planet. So what happened on Venus? Did all those that didn't move to fourth density, did they move on? Did they incarnate somewhere else? Did they die? As a process of moving to fourth density, is there some radical change? A lot of people right now are talking about a new Earth which have reflections a little bit of this movement to fourth density. Other channeled beings have talked about the same things that have mentioned in Law of One, such as the 90,000 year time span and moving to new bodies. And so my first thought is, okay, are we going to go through this radical upheaval if a large group of people on the planet move to fourth density, or am I misunderstanding?
There's always, there's usually, I won't say always, there's very seldom always is. There's some anomalies, but when there is a graduation into the fourth density, those who are able to make it then remain on this planet, on Earth. This will be their home planet for the fourth density.
Right.
Those entities who do not make it, and this planet, by the way, is inhabited by many entities who've already been through the third density and didn't make it.
Okay.
We have a lot of repeaters here. So when you don't make it, you go to another third density planet and try again.
Okay.
Everybody will eventually make it. Nobody gets left behind. There is an infinity of time for this to happen.
Right.
So if there is a certain number of the population or percentage that doesn't make it, they will choose another planet like they've already done probably once coming to Earth.
Right.
That's what happened to the entities on Venus that didn't make it into the fourth density there. But
Okay.
some of them were able to stay and make it. Ra was apparently graduated after the second cycle of 25,000 years. There are 3 different 25,000 year cycles to add up to the 75,000 years.
Okay.
Each one has its own harvest. And entities can individually harvest themselves during the cycle without having to, to get, the mystics of all ages have basically done that.
Right.
Ra said that there have been various entities who were able to make it on their own. And most of them, though, in the positive sense, if they make the harvest before the rest of the planet has a chance to be harvested, they don't go on. They come back to help out because they're service to others. That's the whole idea.
Right.
Positively oriented entities want to be of service to others, to their brothers and sisters who haven't made it.
Right.
In fact, Ra belongs to what it's called the Brothers and Sisters of Sorrow.
Of sorrow, which
of sorrow.
is so sad.
Well, a planet like Earth right now,
Right.
for such a long time, there's been so many wars
Right.
throughout the history here and people don't know that the Creator is in them. There is sorrow, and they have arguments, adversary relationships, and bellicosity everywhere. That is basically one way of calling. The Brothers and Sisters of Sorrow answer calls for their assistance. And it doesn't have to be, we need you to come here and help us out. It can be, we are in agony. We are feeling so badly. There is so much dissension, so much lack of hope. What can we do? That is a call.
Right.
And just their behavior, it can be a call for assistance. So they answer, they come. And sometimes they come in the form of what's called wanderers.
Right.
Part of their social memory complex. And that's a social memory complex is a planetary complex that they all have decided to be of service to others, and they are of one being.
Right.
They pointed the needle in one direction. And so that's what Ra was when they graduated from Venus. And some of their entities come here to Earth and go through the same forgetting that everybody else goes through. But there's something in them that says, I'm here for a reason. I'm here to help out. That becomes their reason for existence. And they hopefully then have brought certain talents that they could use. And a lot of the people you see channeling are probably wanderers. A lot of people in the so-called New Age movement are probably wanderers.
Right.
Everybody's in meditation groups and trying to figure out the reason for their existence and how to move spiritually along the path. They're probably wanderers.
Right.
Or they're going to become a wanderer when they make it.
Right. So the percentage with the service to self and service to others, when you see the 5% service to others, the radical path to service to self and never moving beyond 6.5 density, but then when it kind of unveils a lot of what has gone on the planet, there are competing forces on this planet that are advocating service to self at the same time, and we're battling with that. Do you think those service to self others have hurt our chances of graduation, or has it become a catalyst to graduate? What is your, having lived with this knowledge for so long and seeing evidence of the service to self distortions that are around, what's your impression? How do we, because they're still part of us, it's the law of one. That's just another self.
Yeah,
and
they are.
it's so how do we, as somebody that personally that is of service to others, I don't, and how do I manage that knowledge and information when I see it in the world? It can. Do you understand my question? I'm trying to put it in the best way. That's a,
Well, I think I do. Let me know
yeah.
if I don't answer your
Okay.
question. I'll try again.
Yeah.
Um, Anybody who wants to be of service to others and sees the world around them in disarray, whether it's individuals or groups or whatever, what you can do is send them love and light. You see all as the creator,
Right.
and you send everybody love and light. Maybe there's something in a practical way that you can do in your own community to help feed the poor,
Right.
or to help establish meditation groups so that people can come and meditate and learn more. Uh, I'd say meditation is the most important tool that anybody can use to determine what they can do to be of service to others. Because each of us has made pre-incarnative choices before we got here, that if we're able to realize those and to learn what we wish to learn, will move us along the path of service to others in a way that we had hoped.
Okay.
So in meditation, you can go into your meditations and ask, why am I here? What can I do? And then wait. There is very likely going to be something either in the meditation that gives you an indication, or there's some way that your guides will contact you through a book at the proper time, meeting a certain person at the proper time, being in the right place at the proper time. Something will happen synchronistically. You'll say, oh my goodness, how did that happen? It looks like it was an accident, but there aren't any accidents.
Right.
When you ask and you have the will to serve and the desire and the faith that it is possible, those two things, the will and the faith, are your most important ingredients for moving along the path of finding out what your service is, what you can do, what your next step is. Those, I'd say, meditation, will, and faith. Those are the
Okay.
ways that you can deal with whatever is happening in the world.
Fantastic. So, if I have meditations on my channel quite a bit, and if I wanted to create a meditation, I would just ask those questions, right? Uh, just basing it around the idea of inviting and openly inviting answers to these questions. Is that the best way for me to summarize
Right.
that? Okay.
It's usually more helpful to ask one question for meditation
Okay.
and maybe keep asking it in meditations until you get an answer that you feel is really
Okay.
meant for you. Now, you can also do this with your dreams. Um, yeah, this is a little more advanced technique, though. You can ask those same questions before you go to bed and ask your either your higher self or your
Mhm.
unconscious mind or your guides to give you some sort of an indication in a dream. And the same thing can happen. But like I say, that's a little bit more advanced than
Right.
meditation. Meditation is available to anybody.
Right.
Anybody can do that.
One of the really fascinating and incredible concepts that comes from Law of One for me personally is the idea of the higher self, which I still, with the way that Ra describes it at some points, don't understand it completely. But the idea that there's this version of me that has experienced what I'm going through already and has an understanding of all these different incarnations and that I can access, that is there, this higher self. And once I read the Law of One material, I started, openly asking my higher self on a regular basis, and it felt like I was that my higher self is willing and ready to help me, very much like Ra. He doesn't want to violate my free will. Am I right in understanding that? Is there ways that we can access our higher self? Um, does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, sure. Our higher self is supposedly located in the middle of the sixth density, halfway through 75 million years of experience. And they have all the knowledge of the path that we've traveled and could travel, not necessarily what we will exactly travel, because free
Right.
will is paramount in this infinite creation.
Right.
So if we ask with sincerity, with again, the faith that there is a higher self and the will to know, to live by what we get, the information that is inspirational in nature, we can ask for assistance and the higher self will find some way to guide us. Some people are open to various ways, maybe images or actual words or opportunities, like I said, the
Hmm.
right person, the right book, the right place at the right time. There are all kinds of ways for the higher self to help us, sometimes in dreams as well. So there will be some kind of response if we are sincerely looking for it, and we want it. The higher self is there for us to guide us, and in some instances to protect us. So, but
Right.
we need to ask. We need to ask to get that type of resistance.
You've explored the law of one further beyond these in your channelings with Quo. And so you have, my first question I was going to ask you was there any questions that you wish that you would have asked Ra that you didn't get a chance to ask? But I thought maybe you kind of asked
Yeah.
those questions to Quo a little bit, but what questions would you like to ask?
Oh, over the years, we thought of different things that we could
Of
ask.
course.
Of course, like you said, we always like to know more about Ra, but they seem to be rather. They said that they were humble messengers of the law of one, and when we did ask, we got some of that information I shared with you earlier. But
Right.
basically, we just got. Well, we went through these 7 densities, and we're
Yeah.
trying to get into the 7th density, and they didn't give us a lot of
No.
information. Um, I guess we'd like to know more. We only got through the mind portion of the archetypical mind in
Mhm.
specific questions. We'd love to have more on the body and the spirit. We did pretty well, I think, on the history of Earth and the other planets in our solar system.
Mhm.
Um, I think Don had this one way of looking at the way we were able to ask questions. He said that as your circle of knowledge grows, it touches more that you don't know.
Right.
So there are various avenues. Uh, in every avenue we took, we could have gone further.
Right.
So there's everything you see in there. We would like to have amplifications
Of
on everything.
course. And
So
we were honored to have Don asking a lot of these questions because some of them are mind-blowing. That you can see that his knowledge is behind a lot of it, and I really love his expansion of the idea of the logos. And of course, after I read this material, I'm never going to look the sun the same way again. When I'm sitting out in the sun, it's not just me sitting out in the sun, it's me talking to the sun, me
oh
trying to
yeah,
form a communication. Do you think that we could channel the sun? Do you think it's channelable or no?
I really don't know. That's a good question.
Right.
Um, Ra suggested that the sun bodies, any logos or sun body, does not go through the evolutionary process like we do.
Okay.
They are all densities at once. They created everything in our particular either solar system or galaxy.
Okay.
So they formed this pattern, which we call the archetypical mind. That is the nature of our evolutionary process. So um, there is actually a council on Saturn. It's called the
Right.
Council of Nine or the Guardians that are just about as close to logos entities, I think, as you could get. I think they're 6th and 7th density. And there have been 2 sources, I guess, in our world that channeled the 9.
The 9. Right.
Dr. Puharich
Uh-huh.
and Mark Probert back in the 50s and the 60s.
I will
So,
definitely check them out.
yeah, as far as I know, though, there haven't been any contacts with a logos entity.
Right.
Although, if you are successful in making contact with your higher self and then can make it all the way through from the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet energy centers,
Right.
like the mystics of old and the current days as well
Right.
have done, you can actually channel the creator.
Okay.
You make contact, as Ross said, with intelligent infinity, which is the creator
Right.
or God or the spirit or oneness. There's lots of names for it, but
Right.
that is possible as well. Um,
So
so
the intelligent infinity stuff, I'm fascinated. I dedicated a whole episode on it. I took all the times that Ra mentions intelligent infinity just to
wow,
break it down and kind of read them all in one thing. And so my question, there's an implication that on different planets in the universe, there's a point where a civilization reaches where they can realize they can communicate with intelligent infinity on a larger scale, and there's a huge advancement that occurs. And my question was, I mean, how can what can I do to access intelligent infinity? And they kind of give us some explanation. It's through meditation and accessing these different rays. But just to refine it a little bit through your understanding, having all these years since you've kind of had a time to really think about intelligence, it's not really channeled, is it? It's just a force like electricity. Or is it a living communicative being that has a back and forth? What is your impression of intelligent infinity? Because that blew me in my mind. A very fascinating part of the Law of One material.
People do channel intelligent infinity in a variety of ways.
Mm-hmm.
People who have psychic abilities, they've been through different types of initiation where they have spiritual awakenings,
Mm-hmm.
and they've been able to use their catalyst and growth through the various energy centers,
Mm-hmm.
can channel intelligent infinity in healing, or in teaching,
Mm-hmm.
or in prophesying, or in speaking of greater ways of being of service. I guess you'd say that would be something similar to predicting the future. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's all kinds of ways of channeling that, and various psychics, where there's various ways of healing, various ways of teaching,
Right.
and all of these have either intelligent energy or intelligent infinity being
Right.
channeled. Intelligent energy is usually associated with the indigo ray between the eyes, the brow. Intelligent infinity is usually associated with the crown chakra. So, depending upon what people have accessed, and one of those two or both, they can be channeling various types of information or experience or
Wow.
healings. And
It's
that's the way it basically works. It's in a type of initiation when you make contact with either of those centers, and
right.
then you're able to bring through the energy that is your particular talent, shall we say. Again, one of the things I think that is really important to realize that we are all one, but
Right.
we are also unique. Each one of us has a unique path. No two paths or people are the same. No
Right.
two channelings of intelligent infinity are the same.
Right.
But there are similarities, like we all have two hands, two legs, so forth. We're similar, but we're
Mm-hmm.
different. We look different when we have two hands, two legs, arms, leg, whatever.
Right.
So we're unique and we are one at the same time.
So, uh, do you ponder? There's a little comment that Ra makes about the archetypal mind and how some Ra's brothers and sisters had accessed or seen these other archetypal minds in other solar systems. And that thought just, okay, you start to imagine it's almost like it's a playground for the logos in each of these solar systems.
Right,
They're kind of experimenting also with the archetypal mind by adding different facets and factors. So the
right.
variability of it, when I look up in the stars, is truly mind-boggling. Have you ever tried to fathom what if they were to change the archetypal mind, or have you ever gone through and played around with those concepts?
Well, Ross suggested that in the beginning there was one primal logos or great central sun, and
Right.
it had one archetypical mind that each succeeding logoi, sublogoi, would refine. They wouldn't add to it or subtract from it.
Okay.
They would refine it in a way that would seem like adding to,
Right.
so that, as Ross said, they had far wanderers that went to other distant logoi, and they met these archetypical minds that staggered their intellect, that
Right.
staggered their imagination.
I love that.
It's baffling, they. It was just a totally foreign world, although they were just refinements upon the original primal logos's archetypical mind, but refinements in such a degree that they had a lot to learn.
Right. Yeah. So I also want, for people watching this interview, it's you've done a lot more than just the Law of One. Your channelings with Quo and your some of your other writings, and also Carla's other writings. There's so much. People always come to you about the Law of One, but there's so much more that you've done. You've shepherded this information, um, and so I want to thank you for that. You've had some other experiences with channelings. So first, let me ask you: when you start to channel, do you know it? Do you have a feeling there's something in your body that you know, or do you remember it? Like, was it like Carla when you're channeling, or are you halfway there? What is your experience when you channel?
Well, I go through the same tuning process that Carla did. Um, and I always ask that the words be given to me one at a time, slowly. so that I can perceive them clearly.
Okay.
And we've been channeling Quo since 1986.
Right.
We've got over, I think, 1,500 different channelings of Quo. And
Yeah.
some of them, especially the ones that Carla did, are absolutely beautiful. They're
Yes, they're
just
amazing.
amazing. They really,
Yeah.
really are. They go into more detail about some of the concepts that Ra was more general about.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go into the detail, like you said, we didn't go as far with it as we maybe would have wanted to, because
Right.
ask about too. But Quo would go into the details that were so inspiring. And
Right.
so I ask for that to be as specific as possible, a word at a time, because I would like to do it clearly and to not imagine or add my own uh,
Right.
type of feeling to it or thoughts about it. I want it to be to quotes. Although the Confederation's always said in their conscious channeling, they feel that it is a good balance to have some of what the channel's experience and knowledge is to call upon to verify each of our spiritual paths, not just a channel,
Right.
but each entity on the planet. That a channel might represent some of what is being learned by everybody on the planet. So they use some of that information that correlates with what they're giving as examples, for example,
Okay.
to show how what you are all learning is a basis for what is the truth of your existence and how you're moving through your spiritual process. So I, I see sometimes a thought will come into my mind that Quo gives me that is something that is familiar to me already.
Right.
But I always feel more comfortable when I don't know anything about what I'm channeling.
Right.
So that, I didn't know that. That had to come from somebody else.
Right.
But I go through the same tuning and challenging that Carla always recommended. So, and I do the banishing ritual every day in this room. This is a room where we meditate in.
The LBRP.
Right.
Right. Okay. Um, so, and I also recommend anybody get a chance that wants to know how to channel. Carla wrote a fantastic book that is a guidebook on how to channel. Um, the I'm correct? I mean, if you read that book, it's her experience with channeling, but she describes all of the different doubts in the process and what you
Right.
go through in channeling. And I thought it was wonderful. Yes, very much so.
It's to help people, basically people who are already channeling, to refine the process. It's always best to learn from an experienced channel, because there is so much to know before you actually get channeling. How to tune yourself. What is the heart of your spiritual journey? Who
Right.
am I? How can I challenge? How can I access my guides to help me in the process of tuning? And there's just when we've done it in the past,
Hmm.
we have a channeling group going now, a practice channeling, and it's been going for 3 years, and we are still learning, but they're getting very good at it. You need at least 3 people in a group to be able
Okay.
to channel. Carl always said the 3 was the minimum, because that somehow universalizes the message that you get. Uh, Channeling by yourself or with just 2 people, usually if people do that, it's only wise to do that with your own guides. It's personal to you.
Okay.
But if you channel other sources outside yourself, you really do need at least 3 people in the group to make it universal and to protect the one doing the channeling.
What information have you found from these newer channelings since '86? Like you said, I think there was somebody else that you channeled that from the Confederation. Was it? It starts with a T.
Latui,
Latwii, right?
yeah.
Have you found any information from these sources that have added to your knowledge that you can share with us for people that maybe haven't gone through all that treasure trove of different channelings that maybe can enhance our knowledge or understanding of the law of one?
Well, like I said, Quo and Latui both. Well, actually, to let you know who Quo is, it took us a while to ask them who they were, because
Yeah.
Quo in Latin, if you've had Latin, means who or what. So by their very name, they were suggesting maybe we should ask who they were. And they're actually a principle.
Okay.
Uh, the first channel we ever had was Hatan at the 4th density. It's
Okay.
part of Quo. Latui from the 5th density is part of Quo.
Right.
And in a step down fashion, Ra from the 6th density is also part of Quo.
Ah.
So Quo is a principle of a combination of 4th, 5th, and 6th densities. So they have been able to elaborate a lot of the material we got in the Law of One, just about anything you can mention in the Law of One, at some point, somebody in our meditation group has asked about that. Whatever you can find in there has been asked about.
Right.
So it'd be hard for me to say, well,
Right, right.
everything that you've read has been elaborated upon in some fashion by our channelings here, most especially of Quo.
My imagination loves to run wild when they mention the Confederation. I see like a Justice League, this big, beautiful building on some planet with, it, and the people are meeting in a big circle. How do you, is there a physical place where the Confederation, or is it just in a spiritual? Do you think there's a physical place where there's an actual headquarters? I mean, we have Saturn is like a headquarters kind of this,
Right.
right? You think is there a place where the Confederation meets? We fly a
I
spaceship?
don't know. I honestly don't know. We never asked.
Yeah.
I would be kind of surprised if there were,
Right.
because they tend to be universal in their experience of each other. They are aware in this confederation. Also, there are infinite confederations throughout the universe.
Right.
So our particular confederation is our local confederation. It tends to operate according to whoever has the skills that's being asked for or called for by anybody in this general area, various solar systems. There is somebody usually in the confederation that can answer the call. Sometimes they send love and light to a planet,
Right.
and that is available for the planetary population to access, perhaps in their dreams or their meditations, or in their aha moments as they're moving through their life, and there's a coincidence that sparks interest in one direction or another. Or maybe they will send various entities like those of Ra to a planet like Earth to help make amends for the distortions in the Law of One that happened because of a previous experience with various portions of the planetary population. All kinds of reasons are available for why and how various portions of the Confederation go out in service to others, or send some portion of themselves as wanderers, or as love, as light, as healing, as many things as you can imagine that would draw people to a planet are available as means by which the Confederation finds itself in contact with various portions or populations on the planet.
So it's nice to have an expert. So when I want to send love and light, how do I do it? If I want to send love and light to my girlfriend, or to a group, or even the planet or something, I can imagine them in a meditation. But the expert who has been sending love and light regularly, how do you do it?
Well, I try to use visualization.
Okay.
I think the most important thing, though, is the intention to do that.
Okay.
And whatever your intention is in your meditative state, and I think meditation is the very best way to do it.
Okay.
You can do it consciously in contemplation if you wish. If you're driving in a car, you can do it the best you can. You can't meditate in the car, but in your meditations, intend to send the love and light to a certain person or group. Attempt to visualize that person or group. Then see the love and the light imbuing them with its presence, so that it can almost be breathed in, shall we say, through their lungs and their nostrils, or through every pore in their being, or in their very being which surrounds them. See it being imbued with the love and light you send. Maybe you want to give a certain color or form or shape. Usually I just send what look like a cloud or a rain that would soak the entities in love and in light, in healing, in unity. And then at some point you see it and you say, it is done. And it's like a magical practice by hands, or snapping your fingers, or saying, may it be so, or so be it, whatever. Then that does it, that fixes it there. So it's available to them.
Okay. And we have unlimited love and light that we can give. It's unlimited.
Right. Yeah.
So I only wish, and I know for many people, that I could thank you for the way you've shepherded this information. It's one thing to have all this information. It's another on how to produce it to the world. and you've presented a website that's freely accessible to anybody. You've done your best not to create any distortions or cults or anything out of this. It's pure. You can tell the intention is purely out of love, and that is why it has such credibility with me, is the intention behind it. You can feel the love behind it. There is a genuine desire on your part to help this planet with this knowledge that you've had, and you've shared it in a positive way. And I want to thank you for teaching me. I'm still learning. I'm still a student. If there, other than is there any other things that you can think of that I can do to help myself and this planet to move beyond that 51%, to help others? I want to help as many people as possible, but I'm in a pandemic. I'm sitting in my house alone. So what can I do to help as many people as possible? What can I do?
Well, each morning in my first meditation of the day, I make a visualization of planet Earth. And I see our Mother Gaia moving through space, spinning on her axis with almost 8 billion souls, moving towards the fourth density of love and understanding. And yet these 8 billion souls are scattered throughout the spectrum of disappointment, of anger, of confusion, of hopelessness, of separation. So I ask the infinite love and light of the one creator to move through my violet ray energy center, the crown chakra, that I can then send it out through my heart chakra to each of the 8 billion souls on planet Earth, that it might set up a harmonic resonance with the love and light that is in them, that they may not be aware of, because they are also the creator, and the creator's love and light is in them. So if this harmonic resonance can be set up and increased in vibration and in frequency, then perhaps a light can come on within their being. And they can begin to see a reason for hope, a reason to continue doing the will of the creator, to discover the pre-incarnated choices they've made, that they can begin serving each other and finding the creator in each other. Yes. That this light resonance then can become brighter and brighter, and the planet itself become brightly shining, almost as if a star. And then the Mother Earth can be moving more and more firmly and fast into the fourth density of love and understanding, so that this is a social memory complex now, and not just separate individuals in various states of disarray, but a social memory complex seeking unity, seeking service to others. And then I ended by, may it be so. So that's my own personal visualization. I think anybody can make up their own or use that one.
Yeah.
That can have an effect. I believe it can.
I absolutely love that. Thank you. Some other nerdy questions that come when we talk about the love one. Beyond the logos, we know that the sun is, so also all of the planets are sublogi of the logos, right?
Right.
So each of the planets are a living conscious entity, which is hard for me to grasp. The Earth is a body for a living conscious entity, Mother Gaia, as you said.
Right.
What do you think that their role is? They're all creating their own forms of life for the creator to better understand itself with different densities and different paths. How do you interpret that portion of the law of one, the sublogi being the planets, and how the planets interact with us?
Well, many of them do exactly what you say, what the Earth is doing. They have various sublogi, such as we are as individual human beings, that can make free will choices, interact with each other in the evolutionary process in a unique way, and every choice they ever make in any incarnation becomes more ways for the creator to know itself. So they're all contributing to the creator knowing itself, but they're also contributing to their own spiritual path and the spiritual path of those around them by how they interact, how they use their catalyst, how they use maybe the difficulties that come up between two people, how they resolve them with clear communication and unconditional love. All of these entities on all the planets throughout the universes can do this and do this. Now, some planets do not get into this stage of going through the evolutionary process. They look like a planet to the physical naked eye, but they are, as what Ra said, still a portion of the intelligent infinity. And they are in what you might say a unified state at all times. They don't make a progression through the various densities. So not all planets do what we're talking about here that the Earth has done and Mars attempted to do and Venus did. and Saturn. And then they say that
Right.
Uranus on the outside edges of our solar system has the capability
Is that
of
the
going
beginning?
through all of the cycles, right?
Yeah.
So they're all adding in a unique way to the desire of the creator to know itself. Because as this cycle of densities, 1 through 7, and then into the 8th density of unity continues, there is a fruit or a harvest that all of us bring with all of our choices, all of our free will choices.
Hmm.
It's like a bounty of festival to the creator. It is combined at the end of this cycle so that there is what we see as a black hole.
Right.
Everything is absorbed into it. But on the other side of that black hole is the beginning of a white dwarf star. That is a beginning again, what has just finished for that particular octave of densities, so that we are in an infinite creation. All of this experience we're having in this octave has been going on infinitely before us, it would seem, and will go on infinitely beyond us. And to boggle your mind even more, it's all happening in the eternal present.
In the right now, at this moment.
Right now. Here in third density, we have a past, a present, and a future.
Right.
But outside of that, there is the eternal present where everything is happening at once. And
Wow.
all of this, that it's what the mind, fails to understand.
Right.
And actually, that's the way I would prefer it. If the creation as is occurring according to Ra's description could be understood by my mind is too small.
Right.
I like the idea of something that I cannot intellectually understand, that has to go on beyond any understanding and happen in a fashion that says, how could that happen? How could that be?
Right.
Carla always said, where you find paradox like that, there you have the chance for real spiritual understanding or grasping of a larger principle. And all of this is happening all at once.
Now, do you think that when we move to a social memory complex, first of all, is it a fusion? Is the social memory complex a combination of individuals, or does it become one individual consciousness? It's implied that Ra has different entities that go out and become wanderers and different things, but it's still a social memory complex.
Right.
So is there a fusion that occurs?
There is a fusion of experience. If you're familiar with Carl Jung's collective unconscious,
yes,
well, at some point it becomes conscious.
It becomes conscious.
And Ra says that the Akashic record, which is a record of every entity's, every incarnation, and every experience, that is the beginning of our social memory complex right there.
Okay.
And
that makes more
what
sense.
what will occur, hopefully, and Ra said is possible, in one fine, strong moment of inspiration for this planet to choose to be positively oriented. So if that should happen, all the entities on the planet then would mentally be aware of every other entity's experience, a huge library of information available for how that one social memory complex, however many billions or millions of souls, however it decides to be of service, can call upon that entire memory library.
It's amazing.
Means by which to conduct their service. And by doing it, they find more information. They're constantly adding to that infinite array of information.
Do you think the social memory complex becomes a planet at some point? Do you think it becomes an actual physical presence that's like a planet, or is it not? Have you ever
the social memory complex, like I said, the fourth density graduates of the Earth will have this social memory complex mentality, but they'll be on the Earth.
Okay, on the Earth.
So Ra was on Venus up until the sixth density. So they stayed there fourth, fifth, and sixth, and then they left Venus to be of service. And so they are now on the sun, where any fourth through sixth density entity can go and be a portion of that experience on the sun body.
Oh, wow.
And as you may be familiar with the more advanced concept, they said that sixth density love, the fusion of two entities or more in sixth density love, produces what we see as the rays of sun that come to planet Earth. So I believe that is why they're worshipped as the god of the sun.
Right.
Because they're not the only ones on the sun, though, by the way. There are many, many more on the sun that can go there and produce the light that we see, the light that gives life to this planet.
Wow. It's stuff like this is so much fun to sit and think about. And I'm so grateful that you've spent this much time with me in answering these questions. And I only hope maybe someday in the future, we have some more questions that we could ask you. But I recommend that everybody go to the law-of-one.info. And you can see a full transcript of the Law of One sessions, and to support LL Research, which is a fantastic organization that has done a great job of shepherding this information. And I am just honored that I got a chance to meet you and talk with you, and thank you for giving your time such a wonderful way. And thank you so much. I'll say it again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I appreciate it.
Well, it has been my great honor to be here to talk about the Law of One, and I thank you for the invitation. And I thank everybody that's been listening, and go out and share your love and light with everybody around you. Let's help to bring each other home.
Sounds good. We'll stop it right there. Welcome to the Reality Revolution. Thank you so much. Explore, I can tell. Unleash your potential. Some topics on how to change the subconscious mind and some.
I'm your host, Brian Scott.